It is the appointed hour, and I'll call the meeting of the East Long Meadow Public Library Board of Library Trustees to order. It's March 21st, 2018, and the first order of business is to take attendance, and I am Charlie Gray.
David Boucher.
Cindy McNutt.
Layla Johnston.
Melanie Manheim.
Diane Tiago.
Michael Gray.
Michael Gray. Great last name, Michael. This is a significant meeting for me, and I would like to, with the concurrence of the board, ask that we move for one item only, item 5 on our agenda up for one item that I have, if that's all right with everyone. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And that is to just say this is my my final meeting as a member of the Board of Trustees of the library. I was pleased to be asked to serve, and I was pleased to serve, and it's been a wonderful 6 years. I was elected the second term, I was elected to 2 3-year terms. The second election was April 14th of 2015. So if I go 3 years, and I'm good at math, so that would be 3 years from April 14th to April 14th of this year would be 3 years. April 14th of 2018 would be 3 years. Our next meeting will be scheduled for April 18th, so this is my last meeting. Now, I have a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, and we are happy, Cindy, you're able to be here in spite of your babysitting requirements. Thank you very much for coming. But I do have just a few people I'd like to thank. I'd like to thank Cindy, who back 8 years ago saw me wandering around the library and said, you know, you'd be a good person to be on our Board of Trustees. And I don't know anything, I don't want to do it, I got plenty of stuff to do, don't worry about it. Yeah. Well, Cindy, you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
That Cindy was our children's librarian, and she got me in a corner in the children's part of the library and beat me up pretty good. So every time I came in after that, she said, well, and finally I talked with Susan Peterson, and then I decided that I would volunteer to serve, and it's been a great experience. I want to thank the people of the town of East Long Meadow, all of the residents. It's been an honor to represent you to the library, and of course represent the library to you. I also want to thank all the people that signed my nomination papers back 6 years ago, over 6 years ago now, and again 3 years ago, and especially thank all the people that voted for me. In those days we had elections. We don't have elections anymore for this particular position, but I thank the people who voted for me especially. I hope I've lived up to your expectations. Secondly, I want to thank the past board members with whom I've served. They've been a wonderful group of people, truly lovers of the library, and every single one of them has made contributions to the library and to our community, positive contributions. I've contacted and talked with many of them over the years, and including the past chairman, and they have been unfailing in their support, and they have been willing to provide their advice and counsel when it was necessary, and we've dealt with some rather significant issues. I'd like to thank the 2 librarians with whom I've served. Layla Johnston, who is here, is our current librarian. Good to have you. And thank you for everything you've done. Susan Peterson is our longtime librarian, retired, well, gosh, it's almost 2 years ago. Is it possible? She was a wonderful person to work with, as you all know, and we miss her. I'd also like to thank the library staff. They have been very supportive, and we went through a period of time. Layla, before you were able to come on the scene, we had people were doing 2 and 3 jobs, and it was a very challenging time for our library, but they did wonderfully well. And I just can't express the appreciation that the trustees have for those people who work so very hard on our behalf. The boards of selectmen in the previous iterations of our town governance were always supportive of our library. The current town council continues to be supportive, as does our current town manager. We've been very fortunate to have leadership in our town that believes in libraries and supports libraries. Lastly, my wife and, of course, my family. It doesn't seem like a big deal to come out once a month or more frequently as circumstances dictate, but they have been supportive, and they have tolerated me being away at times and maybe not paying as much attention to them as I would have. So it's been a great 6 years of my life, and I thank everyone, especially those now present, for your support and for being your friends. And I'm not going away. I'm just not going to be on the board anymore. So that is.
Have to get you back in the corner.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, well, you never say never in this
That's
business,
right.
you know. You never say never. That's right.
Yeah.
Diane's been there.
Oh, yeah, been there.
Yeah, she calls it the old.
Well, and I would like to thank you,
The
Charlie.
old Audie Murphy film is To Hell and Back, right?
Yes.
You keep doing it till you get it right? Yeah, I know.
But
So,
yes,
that's it. Thank you.
I would like to thank you sincerely for serving on the board for these years and for serving as chairperson. We had so
Thank
many
you.
changes when I first came on as director. It was your support and your devotion to this institution that really helped all of us in this room kind of navigate our way through those murky waters. And we really appreciate your years of service. I look forward to seeing you in here with your grandkids, just as we always do.
That'll be great.
And yes, maybe we'll get him back in the corner.
Yeah, you know, might take 2 of us to say.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, thank you again, Charlie. I
Thank you,
can't say enough.
Layla. I appreciate that, your kindness, and thank you for your kind words. So.
And I was absolutely right, Charlie.
You were right, huh?
I was right. You should have been on this board. And you did help navigate rough waters.
Well, you're kind.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been a great experience.
It's the
Thank you.
truth.
Thank you. It's been because of everything that you folks did, you know. And that's my point of privilege. And if there's nothing else on, that's just one part of new business. So we'll go back to the regular order.
Okay.
And if it's all right, we'll go back and we'll call for the minutes of the last, which is the second item on our printed agenda. Thank you for tolerating my
It was very well said.
announcement. The meeting minutes, they were distributed earlier, and I think folks may have had a chance to read them over. Does anyone have any comments or corrections or additions? Diane, I've noticed that not only are the minutes complete, accurate, but there are no typos.
Ever.
I know, and that's a good thing.
How do you do that? Thank you. Quite a gift.
That is terrific. And I would entertain a motion if everyone has had a chance to review the minutes. They look to be complete and accurate to me. If I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
As
I'd like to
submitted.
entertain the motion to
Thank you, Mel.
approve the meeting minutes for February 21st, 2018.
Thank you, Melanie. Is there a second?
I'll second the
All right,
motion.
is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diane.
Welcome.
Guest opportunity to address the board. We have 2 people who are here who are in transition, and the whole town is in transition as we figure out how we're really going to work through our new governance, although the town council has been functioning pretty well so far. But the two people, Melanie Mannheim will be appointed for a second, has accepted a second appointment, and she will be appointed for a 3-year term starting in April. And Mike Gray will also, or has also been appointed for a 3-year term, similarly starting in April. So you're not really guests. Only you continue. You're still a trustee because you have been one before, or you have been one in the current iteration, you know. So you just continue, seamless. And Mike, welcome. Good to have you. Thank you very much. There are no other guests, so we'll move on to number 4 on the lucky number program. Director's report. Melanie? Melanie, geez, Melanie, I'm sorry.
You're up,
I
Melanie.
give you
That's
credit
right,
for
director.
everything. You know, I don't give you credit for being the director. Layla, I'll give you credit for that.
Thank you. I'm in discussion with Joe Dunn, he's the building facilities manager, about the suggestion to have planters installed in front of the library's wheelchair accessible ramp. Planters would be aesthetically pleasing and prevent individuals from driving onto the library sidewalk. Joe and the town manager were both very receptive to that idea, so that's good. We will look
Terrific.
at what would be suitable when it's a little bit warmer and we can do the installation. I'll keep you updated on the project and moving forward as we continue. I have a correction to my own report. It should say.
Just before you,
Yes.
and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just say thank them on our behalf.
Oh, I will,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you. Good.
Jenny Kinder's retirement celebration was very well attended. Thank you to Charlie and Cindy for both speaking. Over 100 members of the public joined us to celebrate her retirement with Olympics-themed games and a farewell story time. Should say her last day was Friday, March 1st.
Yeah.
I am pleased to announce that Children's Assistant Michelle Lemire, who you all probably know, has accepted the position of Children's Librarian. So I'm very pleased that she'll be joining the library's leadership team. The Friends' 3rd annual mini golf event was held on Saturday. The library was a bustling place full of young golfers taking aim at a variety of decorated holes. Again, Cindy was here helping us promote the event and golfing her heart out.
I didn't actually golf.
You didn't golf?
No, I was too busy.
Well, I did donate the balls
I
that we
did.
used last time, the promotional balls, and we donated those to the golf cause.
I'm
so.
using that on the regular golf.
Good for you. Melanie, were you here that day also? Melanie?
We weren't.
You were
We
not.
had a scouting event that day.
Okay, I understand it
But
went
my
well.
husband
Yeah.
golfed
Okay.
and quit at the 4th hole because he wasn't winning.
Yeah, it's a challenging
It's a
but fun course.
It is.
And so I also included the topic of overdue fines as part of our agenda and included in your packet an article about the national trend in reducing or eliminating overdue fines. And as part of that, I'm just gonna pass around, this is the conference lineup, this is the workshop lineup for this year's Public Library Association Conference. And here's the #1 topic for Friday, March 23rd, which is eliminating fines for juvenile materials. So I just want to bring this up for discussion for everyone as something to consider.
I see that's under new business, we have that as a,
Yes.
so we'll get to that when we get to new business for discussion purposes?
Yes.
Let's see.
So that will be, just something that, like I said, I wanted to bring up. This is the national trend, and we'll come to that further in number 5. Upcoming events, the East Long Meadow High School Awards Night will be held on Thursday, May 3rd. Any members of the Board of Library Trustees that would like to contribute to this year's book award should bring me their donations as soon as possible, and thank you to all the trustees who have already donated. And that's my report. And then the financial reports, everything is on track to where we would expect it to be for this point in the fiscal year. If you had any questions, you can feel free to ask me.
I know this isn't the proper I don't, this is out of order.
Oh, that's
But with regards to the high school awards night,
Mm-hmm.
Charlie, I know that you were one of the creators of the award. And
Well-
I was wondering, I mean, I know that this is after your term, but
Yeah.
would you like to do the
Well,
presentation?
I'd love to do that, but I would, my feeling is that it's an opportunity for the Board of Trustees to have a very positive presence in the community and among all of the, not just the students, but the parents and the faculty of the high school. As such, my feeling has always been that the chair of the Board of Library Trustees should be the person that makes the presentation. Now, Art McGuire asked me to fill in for him as the vice chair, and I did that, and I was pleased to do that. Last year, when I did it as the chair, obviously, but my feeling is that it should be the prerogative of the chair of the board. It's a very, very good thing to do, very high visibility, and I appreciate your asking, and you know what? Warms the cockles of my heart, but I would defer to the next chair, and I would also say that there is a precedent if the chair feels that someone else would be better to represent the board at the presentation, that would not be inappropriate. However, I feel that frankly the chair is the person that should be doing it, and it's because it's the number one person, and we treat this award very, very seriously, and it's very important, and it has meaning to the people who receive the reward, and to their parents and friends and family. And I just would thank you for your offer, but I would decline respectfully at this point. And you got another meeting to figure out who's going to be the next chair, and you got
Yeah.
another meeting for the chair to figure out what their wishes are. I'm just saying.
I hear you. I just was
Okay.
thinking I think you're one of the individuals. I don't think any of us were a part of the initiative. So,
I hear you.
well, okay.
I think
For
Michael-
my benefit, could you give me a few lines on what the award is?
Oh, good.
Yeah,
point.
I'll tell you what I'll do, rather than dwell on it, unless you folks would like to, I'll give you the thumbnail sketch.
Yeah.
And I do happen to have a copy of our policy here, and I'll give it to you. You can read it all at your leisure.
All
But
right.
basically, some years ago, and help me, it was probably 5 years ago now, we established as a token from the trustees to a individual nominated by our librarian and by the principal of the high school, a member of the junior class of East Long Meadow High School who's interested in libraries and reading and has demonstrated that interest through significant involvement, volunteerism, whatever. Generally, it's been conducted with a committee. I know Leila has had the committee working over the past months, and I understand from Leila that they've established some candidate, or they've reviewed some very good candidates and have pretty much settled on a candidate who will receive the reward or award this year, and that is secret right now. But there is a certificate. You get the recognition, of course, that the award brings, and there's also a book that's awarded, and there's a small, modest monetary stipend that comes from individual donations from the trustees. So it doesn't spend 1 cent of East Long Meadow tax money. It's just a token from us as trustees, and that's what we have done, and that's what we have thought was a good thing for our community. So that's the short answer, and I got papers that I'll share with you. You need any more than that?
Well, when is it presented? I mean,
Well,
is it part of something else? or
according
is
to
it just-
Layla's, the high school awards night will be held, thank you for asking, Thursday, May 3rd at the high school. Come early, stay late. And Diane went last year. Layla was there.
That was her first time.
Are other
going.
things awarded at this?
Yeah, they're
There
pretty
are-
much, the Rotary and other scholarships.
There
and
are all of the academic
Yeah.
awards from the high school are awarded that night.
It's a big event. It's
It's a very big
very
event.
good event.
Very, very big event. So, if you haven't been there, come and enjoy it. And they do broadcast it on LCAT. So you can also see it on LCAT if you want, I suppose. Sometimes they do anyway. I haven't seen it in recent months. You do it on LCAT? Yeah, every year, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. I didn't mention Kelly Glover, who's our producer,
Thank you,
director
Kelly.
extraordinaire, and she's been here every night that I've been here. So Kelly, thank you very much, and I appreciate your support on this too, because without LCAT, nobody'd know what we were doing here. Well, not everybody, well, I guess people would, not everybody would. So, anything else, any other comments on the director's report? Or the financial report, which we receive informationally?
I just had a question.
Yes, certainly, Cindy.
Unless it's in the Friends report about how the mini golf tournament turned out.
I don't have those figures. I
Oh.
think they're gonna, we'll probably discuss those at the next Friends
Okay,
meeting.
okay.
Which is, I believe, April 3rd, I think,
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
So-
Okay.
It's on a Monday night.
It
at
seemed,
7.
it seemed like a very busy place, however.
Right.
Maybe we could talk about it when we get to the Friends.
Maybe so.
I'm too bad Melanie wasn't here.
Yeah, no.
Okay, do I hear, I'd like a motion to approve the director's report. We do not have to approve the financial report, although it looks pretty neat. Do I hear a motion to approve the director's report?
I'll make a motion to approve the director's report on March 21st, 2018.
Thank you, Melanie. Say I have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Cindy. Any
With the
other?
amended
Any?
March 1st.
Yeah, well, we did amend
Right.
that date, didn't we?
On
Yes.
March 1st.
Is there any further discussion? So the motion's been moved and seconded to approve the director's report with the correction of the date typo, and that's Scrivener's error, as we used to say in the biz. All those in favor of accepting the approving the report?
Aye.
Aye.
Well done. Next item on our agenda, moving right along. Look at me, I'm shuffling papers here, not very good.
Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, so next up was the discussion, and again, I'm just opening the door to the conversation here about the possibility of reducing fines at East Long Meadow Public Library, or perhaps eliminating fines on children's materials. Quite a few, that's the example of the workshop that's going around there that Michael has. A big push, the thought process towards reducing or eliminating fines is that they're really a barrier to people who need to use the library the most, whether it be children who need access to the materials for homework. We already do not charge fines for seniors, for example. And quite a few other libraries do not charge fines on children's materials. That doesn't mean that if you lose a book, you wouldn't be expected to pay for it. This would be different from lost property. This would simply be somebody was busy, forgot to return their materials, did return it, and those fines would be waived. And so I also included, this is an article from Public Libraries Online that gives an example of other sources of other public libraries that are looking at this, changing their policy about fines. I don't expect any decisions to be made tonight or anything, I'm just opening the door to the conversation so that it's something that we can think about and reflect on and discuss further in the future.
You know, being in the children's business, it definitely can be a detriment, and we're trying to turn children on to reading, not off. And a lot of the children are dependent on their parents actually getting the materials back, and yet we're penalizing the child. That's not to say that they don't need to be responsible for their things, but we had to even discuss back a while ago about the question of fines altogether, and whether it may not be more cost effective and public relations effective to have fines be like a voluntary thing.
Yep.
You know, here, this is overdue, we're not gonna charge you, but if you are guilty, you can put something in the pot.
Yeah.
You know, so, there's different ways you can go with it, I
Right.
think, and it would be I think, a topic that would really need to have serious discussion
Yeah.
and thought.
Yeah, well, and I do know that, can't remember when, I know that we used to have a couple of months out of the year where it was like, no fines month, bringing up, like
A can of soup.
a can of soup and so forth and so on and so forth. And some of those
Oh, then we have-
materials that we hadn't seen in quite a
Because people
while.
are afraid to bring them back.
Yes,
They are.
yes,
It's
so
a
we don't
fear
want them to
factor.
be afraid. Yeah.
And not just that, when you start doing that, they'll say, oh, I'll just keep this until the free time.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so you don't wanna encourage that
No.
either. But, and I think the food for fines was a great thing because we were a community helping the community.
Right.
And it has a good positive public relations aspect to it. And that doesn't mean that couldn't happen too,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's why we really need to discuss all the aspects, and there are quite a few.
And there are certain libraries nationwide who are eliminating the
Totally.
fines completely.
Across the board, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Not just
So
children's.
it
but
does
If you have
exist.
no fines, is there any penalty for just not
Mhm.
returning a book?
Of course.
Yeah, so what
There's
happens
something
is
else.
after a certain amount of time, you get 2 renewals. You can call and say, I'm still looking for this book. Can you please renew it for me one more time? If it's something that our library owns, we will do that for you. After that 3rd renewal, it will then convert over to, in our system, it's called lost claims, it's called lost and paid.
And then claims return.
And then claims
is an
return
aspect.
after that. But at that point, you would then be billed for the item. If you return that item, the bill is reduced down to a processing fee, which is very small. So there would still be, it would be a separate lost property type issue as opposed to, and as part of this discussion, I'm hoping we can also consider reducing our fines for DVDs. When
Yeah.
DVDs were first introduced, they were very valuable, they were very,
They're
very
costly.
expensive.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
They can be
And
less than a book.
we have many books that are much
Much
more
more
valuable
expensive,
than
right.
DVDs. Our DVD fines currently are $1 per day. If you're a family of 5 and you have
5 DVDs.
5 DVDs checked out and you
5 hours a
forget
day.
for 5 days, that's $25 on one card, and you then can't use the library until you pay it down to a certain extent.
10.
All of our other circulating material, for the most part, is only 10 cents per day. Our magazines, our books.
That seems to be a no-brainer almost.
So I'm also hoping as part of this discussion, we can think about perhaps reducing the DVD.
The whole fine situation.
Yeah.
Leila, I thank you for sharing that article. I noticed that the meeting is going to be, the workshop or whatever it is, going to be the 23rd of March. So that's coming.
Yeah.
Do we have a representative going to that?
No, that's it. That's at the Public Library Association Conference in Philadelphia, and
Yes.
that would be very costly to send somebody.
We have had folks go in the past, but or a folk, I guess. But that, if we could get someone there taking notes for us, it would be great to have current input and handouts. Maybe if you know people that are going, you could
I can ask, yeah, I
ask
can
your
ask
friends
around.
to send it
Sure.
to you. And that would be valuable because there's nothing more current than that meeting. Heck, that'd be a nice trip to get on. That's a nice, I love the main library in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Let me just say a couple of things. First of all, the nature of fines in a free public library has always been a challenge. This article that you were kind enough to share, I pulled out another one that was referenced, and it talked about an article in the Detroit Free Press describing a long overdue book that was where fines were attempting to be collected from a young person in 1906. So the issue is not, it's a issue that's right now on the front burner in library circles, but it's not an issue that's new. And I can't think of any part of a librarian's job that is more distasteful than collecting fines. I can't. Now, there may be other things, but for me, that would be the worst part of the job. I know that. So we're talking about morale of the staff, and these are folks who want to establish positive relationships with readers, and especially with young readers. However, that being said, and that's important, and that maybe would carry the day in the end, certainly. We are in an environment where, as a public library, we're funded by taxpayers. And the community wants to see the library managed fiscally well. The community wants to understand that they don't mind paying for a free library because it's their tax money and it's going to the betterment of the community and certainly all of the community, all age groups, children, older people, younger people, medium-aged people. But the point is that we are stewards of the money that is being allocated to our care to provide a free library for our community. People will pay us to do that, but they don't want to waste the money. So we have to be careful that the public doesn't say, you're giving away money. Some estimates say that 95% of library borrowers, and I think ours is higher than that, return the materials and books and periodicals and tapes and DVDs and
Telescopes?
telescopes in a timely basis. So there's 5% of the people that don't, let's just say. Now, it may be a different number, I don't know. Layla may have those numbers, or if you don't, I'm sure you could get them. But we're dealing with a very small number of people. We're also not an inner city library. We have middle class, upper middle class clientele here. We do get people from outside of our town who come in because of the goodness of our library and do use our resources. Now, we're probably not talking about waiving fines or penalties for people who come or borrow our materials on a reciprocal basis, I would assume. We'll see. But I would agree, Layla, with your observation about the DVDs. There was a lady whose young daughter had forgotten to bring back a DVD, and she got hit with $7 fine. And while I was standing right next to her, I almost reached in my pocket and said, I'll take care of it. She paid it. But there was a conflict between the mother and the daughter.
Yeah.
And the daughter she was very contrite, and she felt badly. She didn't pay it, but it was not a good situation.
Yeah.
And that's stuck in my mind. So I didn't like that. We treat everybody equally. We treat everybody fairly. We have a policy. That's a policy. I think that, though, we have historically put in the when we were at town meeting government entity. In our budget that we submitted, we always asked for a line of approximately $15,000, which was basically a line that accepted fees, late fees and fees for destroyed or lost material, that kind of thing. And what was it? It was a revolving.
Yep.
What's the word, Diane?
It was
Revolving fund or revolving
Yes,
account. And we, by vote of the town meeting, always got that approved. Which meant that the monies that we were collecting as in fines and in fees to replace lost, damaged, or destroyed materials came back to the library to replace the materials or to continue to have our collection upgraded or continue to have a solid collection. Our collection, and that was, I think, $15,000. I don't know what the current number is, but it's frankly been changed in the past 2 years, so it's all part of a greater budget process, but that's a number that we have to be sensitive to as we present this to the town fathers and mothers. Any amount that we forego in terms of the budget monies coming in, we have to look for ways, I would assume, to offset that. Or we have to get an appropriation that is at least equal to it so that we do not degrade our services, so that we do not degrade our replacement of our collection, so that we do not degrade the repair of materials. Whatever we spend that money for now has to be spent the same way, otherwise the services are being degraded. What does that mean? It probably means that if we were to forgive fines and penalties, and there are, as Leila says, it's a big question because there are a lot of things to worry about. We then would have to increase our budget by an amount. Now it may not be 15,000, it may be some other number, but whatever that number is, it's not a zero-sum game. Now, that being said, I'll share a little true life adventure. When I went to work at Massachusetts Mutual back in 1969, it seems like a long time ago now. In those days, it cost 10 cents to make a phone call, and you could go out in the corridor and put a dime in and make a phone call. No cell phones, none of that stuff. And if you were above a certain level, you could make phone calls from your desk. If you were not above a certain, this is a bureaucracy, remember, you're not above a certain level, you had to go out in the corridor and spend your dime. Once a month, all over the company, people had a list of the phone calls that you had made from your desk, not authorized business phone calls. And the people, a clerk came by and said, you owe 60 cents, or you owe 40 cents, or you owe 70 cents, you owe $17. And they had to collect it. Well, they did a study, and it turns out that the cost of these clerks going around to collect from, I don't know what there were, probably 22,000 people there then, 2,500 people, I don't even know the number. The cost of collecting that money was much more than the money they were collecting. So it may be the same thing we're facing here.
That's possible.
We are ready, as a courtesy to our senior borrowers, we already waive the fees for overdue materials. They do not abuse that privilege.
Correct.
They return money. They return their materials promptly, on time. They're proud of that. I get it back.
And if they don't,
one
they
way or
wanna
the
pay.
other.
Yes.
One way or the other.
That's right.
So I don't know, that would be the second big question I would ask as you're conducting your preliminary study, since I won't be around to see the end of it.
Tune into LCAT.
Yeah, I'm watching that, okay. But I would also ask the questions, what percentage are we talking about of
our
people?
total.
The third thing that comes to mind is some programs say that you you lose your borrowing privileges if you have an outstanding unpaid fine. And that would be a tremendous club, and from my point, because I would not want to, over a 50-cent or $1 fine, I would not want to lose my library privileges. Now, it's a discouragement. What's
It's a
that?
$10 threshold, so.
$10 threshold. But that's the ultimate sanction, I suppose, that any library has. So if you destroy library materials, you replace them. If you don't replace them, you forfeit your privilege, or something like that. So I also have the question: when does a overdue book become a lost or destroyed book? And then there's a procedure that goes in place once that happens. It could be 60 days, whatever the number is. It's a number. The one thing that I've always thought about, and I thought about this when I saw that cute little 12 or 13-year-old girl with her mother wringing her hands over a $7 fine, is that we might consider putting in some kind of an appeal. In other words, the fine is this, but if you'd like to appeal it, tell me why the overdue happened, why it happened. And it happened because my mother was sick and we couldn't get in on time. It happened because anything, give me a number, give me a name, give me a reason.
I lost the book and then I found it. Too late.
My brother borrowed it and he took it away to college and he was reading it, he loved it so much, and he didn't get it back from college until last week. Now that's an appeal. So the fine is still in place, but anybody can fill out an appeal. And it's a very simple thing. Your name, card number. What was, you'd like to appeal the fine on this reason. And I would love to think of that. That would be something I would see. Everybody might get their appeal granted, okay? But they're being asked, and they're being reinforced as to what, did you have a good reason for the fine? Did you? Because every time a book is out of here, or a periodical, or a tape, or a DVD, or any of the materials that we lose, someone else doesn't have an opportunity to take it off the shelves. So that, as Layla said, there are issues all over this place. Now, instinctively, I think it's a good thing to think about, and we should be thinking about it. But there are issues that I think should be addressed, and I think that the people that pay the bills, that is to say the residents and taxpayers, would ask us those questions.
Oh, sure.
And so it behooves us, before we make policy, and along those lines, to make sure our ducks are in order. And it is defensible. On the steps of City Hall, or someplace. Maybe on the steps of the library. We don't have any steps, but could be.
We did.
So that's my opinion. I probably have a number of other opinions, but Layla, have I overstated the case? Is that where you were headed?
We're definitely going to have to discuss it more.
Yeah.
And
That's
I can verify that
absolutely.
every year since the revolving fund was established, that fines revenue has dropped. It is not the $15,000.
It is.
No, and it never reached that threshold.
Right.
I've looked back through some old budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So
And then there's the
Again,
cost
there's
of collecting the fines.
overall though,
With
do we
clerical
really
time.
want to be in that moral judgment with the appeal situation? I feel like that gets
Who's the
into
judge?
staff then having to make this moral judgment on everyone's appeal, where instead if we just alter the policy, then we can be fair to everyone.
I'd like to know how many people actually are affected. Is it 95% who return their material on time or given the extension, or is it more than that?
I do not know. I can
Okay.
find out though.
I think you make the point, and it's a good point. I don't know, and I was looking for a way to say, forget about the fine,
Yep.
frankly.
Exactly.
Now, let me tell you, we have ebooks that we now, ebooks are relatively easy now. E for easy? No. Ebooks, because all we can do is shut them off.
Yeah,
basically.
that's right, there's no overdue.
So there's no overdue, there's no
Yeah, and I
overdue
think
book.
that's probably a significant reason why our fines are
Exactly,
down.
that's one of the reasons why
Yeah,
it's
I'm
gone
sure it
down. We don't collect from senior citizens.
We hadn't done that for
It's been
ever.
at least 10 years.
Yeah, ever
Yeah.
since, I've been
Long
a
time.
senior for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it's been a long time.
It was way before that.
Been a long time, been way before that, which is a good thing, I think. And, but they don't abuse it either.
No,
so.
they don't.
I think you're right. It's a good thing to think about, and I'd love to hear what the association meeting says on the 23rd of March, and I'd love to get more facts from our personal involvement. It may not be a hard decision to make, frankly.
And I think also what helps our library is when you do take out books or DVDs or any resources from our library, the library does send out an email a couple days before
Yes.
it's due saying these are the items that are due. You know, meaning red flag, go look for them now. This gives you, I think, what, 2-3 days maybe to look for them?
Yeah.
So that does buy you time as well. I know we've been doing that, you know, every time we have things that are due, whether it's a DVD or books.
And you say, oh, yeah, I got
Yes,
that.
yes.
Are there any exceptions, like, are there high demand objects in the library that get rented, but they're high demand, like, say, it's so popular, like, you know, 10 people came in yesterday and wanted to reserve it, or situations where the high school gives an assignment, and all the kids in one class
Oh, yeah.
have to come in and try to get a book on, you know,
Yeah, and
making movies or
we
whatever
used
it
to,
is,
in the
and-
children's department, we used to try to find that out ahead and then gather that material and then limit the amount of books on that subject somebody could take out. Because otherwise, the first or two students would get them all. And we tried to spread it out so that there was information available.
And we also
for
have those
as many as we
in-demand
can.
bestsellers like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, James Patterson or the other
Sandra
very
Brown.
popular bestsellers have shorter loan periods that they can be borrowed. And they also have what's known in lingo as age protection, meaning that for the first 6 weeks that East Long Meadow owns the item, only someone with an East Long Meadow card can place a hold. Then after that, it's released so that any, you know, Springfield or Long Meadow can borrow the item.
I only ask because if you had a shorter lending period, but you eliminate fines, somebody could just sort of sit on a book that other people need.
At that point, it would turn into lost and paid then. It would become lost
There's
property.
a point where you have to get it back or you lose your library privileges.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would say, we consider this book lost because it's been out for too long after the due date.
I'm just thinking about students who like have some assignment and would want to
Yeah,
get a book.
yeah.
That's when our belonging to CW Mars is a great
Big
thing because
price.
we can request it from Wilbraham or
A different
Long Meadow
library.
or somewhere else and they'll send it here in a day or two.
We have many libraries to pull
Yeah.
from.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
When Harry Potter came out,
Yeah.
There we go.
That was
There we go.
fun.
I contacted Cindy because I had heard that some of the children weren't able to get a copy of it. It was so popular. And Cindy said, "Oh yes, we have 5. We have 5 copies."
Yeah, we got-
You remember that
we sure
conversation?
do.
And I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "What do you do?" She said, "Well, we have it out on I don't know if it was a 2-week loan or something, and then we have a waiting list. And even with 5 copies, we have a lengthy waiting list." And I said to Cindy, well, "What do you do for the youngsters who are on the waiting list?" She said, "Well, I have a list of comparable things that I," remember that?
Oh, yeah, we had,
And
if you like this,
if you like this, you might like this. While you're waiting to read Harry Potter,
Try
why
this
don't you,
one out.
why don't you read C.S. Lewis or something?
Yeah,
somebody.
right.
And gosh darn it, within a week, Cindy had sent me a copy of the list that she was giving to the children. And I said to myself, this is a real pro, a real professional library. And it was great. But the point is, it was a high demand item. If one of the borrowers, if 5 of the borrowers took it, then we're out of business.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's part of the
That's
thing
right.
that we gotta think through.
And we think of turnover rates. There's a point where is it worth keeping on the shelf if it doesn't go out so many times a year?
Yeah.
You know, you only have a limited space.
Right.
So you want your movers in that space as much as you can. But you also have to think about assignments coming up and nonfiction materials that aren't just popular nonfiction, but nonfiction that's going to help with STEM studies or with the core values that they're trying to teach in the schools. So we try to keep abreast of that as well.
Mhm.
And those might not move as much because then they change it to next year. So,
Is this basically what you wanted to accomplish today?
Yeah, we're starting the discussion and we
getting
can continue the
started?
discussion. Yes,
Okay.
this is great, thank you.
Keep, well, I'll watch on LCAT.
Okay.
I love this, by the way.
you can
This
write
is,
me any suggestions you'd
Well,
like,
I was
Charlie.
just gonna say,
Stick them in my mailbox.
this is,
Knock on the door. What do you think?
you've got some of the best library minds in the town of East Long Meadow working on this, and I know you'll do the right thing. Thank you. Old business. Oh, is there any other new business? No other new business? Is there any old business? I do have one item of old business, and I share this, and actually it overlaps slightly with the discussion on library fines. Last meeting, we approved, rightly, the social media policy. And I want to distribute this as a reminder to people. We've seen it before and we've talked about, because this is how we live our lives. I'll share this with you. It's, Layla knows this, she had to learn it by rote when she became a librarian.
Don't quiz me, I haven't been in school for a little while.
It's the American Library Association Library Bill of Rights. And this, I'm just going to give an overview. The American Library Association affirms that all libraries are forums for information on ideas and that the following basic policies should guide their services. Number one, books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people of the community the library serves. Materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation. Number two, libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. Number three, libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. Number four, libraries should cooperate with all persons and groups concerned with resisting abridgment of free expression and free access to ideas. Number five, a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. And finally, number six, libraries which make exhibit spaces and meeting rooms available to the public they serve should make such facilities available on an equitable basis, regardless of the beliefs or affiliations of individuals or groups requesting their use. Our policies and procedures, our policies that we have in place and that we've worked so hard in crafting, adhere as best we can to the library Bill of Rights. This is how we live. Layla has referred in the past to the ALA, the American Library Association Freedom to Read Initiative, or is that what it's called, an initiative? Freedom to Read? Is that what it's called? I don't even know. But it's consistent with the Library Bill of Rights. And I say this, the overlap, for example, in number 5, person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. There's an interpretation that you could make, but that a person of a very severely disadvantaged background who doesn't have money to pay an overdue fine, we're abridging the right to access to a free library if we continue to charge the fine. So that's an aspect here. Now there are, don't misunderstand me. There are interpretations, that's one of the interpretations. Looking at these 6 points, and remembering that we have approved unanimously our social media policy, if we hear back from our town council or from the subcommittee of the town council that is currently looking at the social media, just go back and think about our wording. And then in the policy, we talked about reserving the right to edit or modify any submissions in response to feedback or other commentary. We also talked about editing inappropriate forms of content. That's something that we would do. We also talked about content that promotes, fosters, or perpetuates discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, gender, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity, genetic information, religion, age, family status, military status, or source of income. So we're making a judgment as to whether the information that we're receiving through social media is affecting any of those numbers. And lastly, just for future reference, any other content deemed inappropriate by the East Long Meadow Public Library. Once you get in the business of deeming content inappropriate, you've got to remember the Library Bill of Rights. So this should be the first question. We don't want to violate, in my view, I would not want to violate the Library Bill of Rights. I believe in a free library, and that's the business we're in. So, that's it.
I think we're in agreement on that.
We are in 100% agreement. Okay, thank you. That's under old business for me. Other business. Anybody else have any old business? Library Friends News, Melanie.
Yes, I'm up. So we were talking about the mobile mini golf indoor event, which was well attended. So at the next Friends meeting, I'll be able to come back with the statistics for that.
Okay.
And the finances, and that should be, I'm sure they're great numbers. Wednesday, April 4th, we'll be starting our spring basket fundraising event. So all the spring baskets will be out here in the lobby for people to purchase tickets at the front desk. And hopefully they can win their spring basket. And anybody is in the community is welcome to bring in a basket and donate one, or create one, a spectacular spring basket. Hopefully we'll get some good gardening weather in here soon.
You never know.
No, those are,
we're
they're not,
waiting.
they don't call them raffles anymore. I call them raffles.
Fundraising.
It's a fundraiser.
It's a fundraiser.
And you can buy a fundraising ticket for $1 or what, how much are the tickets going for this year?
I think are they $1 each, and then
And then if you buy
six
six
for
$5.
$5?
Yes.
6 for $5?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
so
get
I
a bargain.
want to do
I
Yeah, it's a
bought
great
some in the
deal.
past. I
Yeah.
haven't won yet, but I'm sure this year.
I wanted the mini golf one.
I'm sure.
I never won
I'm
anything.
sure this
Did you
will
win
be
a
my
Friends
year.
library basket?
And the baskets
free
have,
membership.
It was a plug-a-lug with candy in it.
the baskets have historically at least been displayed in the
Yes, in the main lobby.
main lobby, and you can purchase. You can make your contribution or whatever. I'm
Yeah,
gonna screw it
towards
up.
the library.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right,
We're all
right to
funding the library, which is
right at the
great.
central circulation desk, and you can't win if you don't.
Go ahead.
You can't win.
If you don't play, thank you, Cindy.
Can't win.
That's it. So, and they're very nice, and it's a
They
Oh,
spring.
they're beautiful.
Spring baskets are beautiful. I know
Some
that.
people are so creative with them.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrific.
The lobby's
And when
always
is the
nice.
when is the
Yeah,
drawing?
it
Is the
makes
drawing
sense.
before or after Easter this year?
That I did not write down on my list, so I can get back to
I
you.
have
the
it
next
as
time.
May
When?
9th.
May 9th.
May 9th.
There you
Okay,
go.
So April 4th,
So
we'll
you got
start
plenty
the
of time.
baskets, and then May 9th, we'll do the drawing.
but don't wait.
Don't wait, don't wait. May 1st, we are going to have our annual Valley Gives Day. And also on May 1st, we're going to be, I think it's around May 1st, we'll be starting up the summer collection, the summer outdoor collection again, where people can take out the tennis rackets and the tennis balls
Okay.
and the croquet set and what have you.
And the telescope.
And the telescope. So last year, I had thought that maybe the summer outdoor collection could start earlier this year, but based on all this snow that we're getting in April, March and April, who knows? So
the
hopefully
old-
we'll shoot for
Yeah.
May 1st or around that time.
The old
You
Yankees
can
will
let me
tell you,
know.
the snow this time of year is
Yes,
nature's
We're supposed to
fertilizer.
have it tonight, and
Is
nothing
that
yet,
right?
which is wonderful. And that's about it.
Thank you.
That's good. You're welcome.
Any other business to come before this meeting? Any other comments, questions? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn the
Okay.
meeting tonight.
All in favor?
All in favor?
We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.